How does one tackle a film like this? The Substance, a film by Corley Fallier. How does one tackle this? Well, the first thing I could tackle this with is to say that this is a story that has been told before, just in different forms and in different ways and in different methods over the decades to the birth of the silent film era with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, what does Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Nutty Professor, the 90s Nutty Professor, and the Substance have in common? It's all about appearances. It's all about inhibitions. It's all about the inside coming out. With Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it is the repressed inhibitions of one very, very repressed man becoming Mr. Hyde, who ends up being a completely different person to Dr. Jekyll. The Nutty Professor, it's more of a lampoon parody of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, with a doctor man, scientist man, who's not exactly conventionally attractive, but he is brilliant in the brain. But he wants to get the girl, he wants to be a Disney princess, so he takes a concoction, which makes him pretty, and he goes out as Buddy, who's very attractive, who also is pretty smart, but then they end up being two completely different personalities, two completely different people, even though they're technically one. And then, of course, we get the Eddie Murphy movie with the Nutty Professor, and then ended up having a sequel, The Clumps, which is another very, very fun movie. The Nutty Professor, the remake of that other classic, was arguably better in many ways because they were two completely different films doing very much the same things. Whereas the original was tackling attractiveness and appearances, the remake was tackling weight, the body weight. Sherman Klump was extremely rotund. He's a very portly man, and he felt very bad about himself because he wanted to get the girl, and a lot of people were making fun of his weight, so he was very self-conscious. Dr. Jekyll, self-conscious. The scientist man in the first Nutty Professor, self-conscious. Sherman Klump, self-conscious. And, of course, we have this lady, we'll get to her in a moment. But they're all self-conscious, right? So Sherman Klump ends up having a very, very important speech at the end of the movie when he finally defeats Buddy Love, where he says it's not about being happy with how much you weigh. It's about being happy with yourself. It's a very important, very, very important speech. It's a very important thing that doesn't just limit itself to one's weight. It can also be expanded upon to one's inhibitions, who you want to express things, like Dr. Jekyll. It could be about attractiveness and not being comfortable with how you look, and wanting to be happy with how you look versus being happy with yourself. And this one, not being happy with how old you are now and wanting to be young again and all of that good stuff. It's very similar. They're very similar concepts, and they're very important concepts to teach a sort of body positivity and mental health positivity for Dr. Jekyll's case. There's a lot of things that these films like to teach you that go beyond just a very entertaining movie or a very entertaining body horror flick or a comedy with Eddie Murphy playing all of the clumps. It goes beyond that to teach you that appearances are just that. They're superficial, they're skin deep. And oftentimes, when you want to be that different thing, it may not actually be what you want, and that different thing that you want so badly may end up being a completely different person. Buddy Love and Sherman Klump are one, but Buddy Love is a completely different person from Sherman Klump. He's completely different. He's not what Sherman wants. It's just what he thought he wanted, and then Buddy became his own entity. Mr. Hyde became a completely different entity. Buddy in the original is a completely different entity. And now we have Sue in the substance, also S-U-E. Smart! Is also a completely different entity to Demi Moore's character. And now we have come to the substance, which is more of the Nutty Professor meets Cronenberg's The Fly remake. It is a body horror at the very end, which might blow a couple people off, but the moral of the film is exactly what Sherman Klump said at the end of the Nutty Professor remake, is that you need to be happy with yourself. You may be a little bit older now, that producer man may be a piece of garbage, but you don't need to take the external world's judgments and place how you need to appear on the demands of the external worlds of you, of what they want. The Nutty Professor, the original one, was a big genius. He's a very smart man. He just wasn't conventionally attractive. And he looked around him and he saw all these conventionally attractive people getting a lot of things that he thought he wanted. But being unconventionally unattractive, he thought he couldn't get it unless he became conventionally attractive, because that's just what he saw society as, is that you needed to be pretty to get things, when you didn't. You were a genius, Mr. Nutty Professor Man. You could have had the world. These pretty people would end up working for you. And so we have Sherman Klump, very genius, who has the heart and soul of the film. It's the reason we come back and keep watching The Nutty Professor. We keep watching it for Sherman Klump, because he is the heart of it. He's the one who feels terrible about his bodily appearance. He's the one who actually tries to lose weight. He's the one who actually gets out there. He exercises. He does cardio. But he just can't seem to drop the weight fast enough. And so he takes a serum in desperation to get the woman that he loves, out of desperation because he thought that she wouldn't go for him unless he looked pretty conventionally, which is thin. It's a very much a telltale sign for appearances. They're skin deep. Literally, skin deep. She literally crawls out of her skin as a different person, as a separate entity. And Sue is very pretty. She's my age, but she's very pretty. She's got the typical body that the producer man, played amazingly by Dennis Quaid, it's what the world wants of her. It's what the world wants of Demi Moore, and it's what Demi Moore thought she wanted. But in the end, Demi Moore ends up laying on the bathroom floor while Sue gets out to get the life that Demi wants. And you start to wonder, are these two people sharing memories? Are they conscious of one another? Like of their actions? No. Apparently, they're not. Now, this it might be a plot hole, it might be just an unintentional thing, or it might be completely intentional. How the film keeps having the substance and explain on the low voice when she calls the substance people on the phone. They say, remember, you are one. You are one person, one entity, right? The balance must be maintained, blah, blah, blah. You are one. But you're not. Demi Moore is lying on the floor comatose for a week while Sue gets to live the best days of her life. And then she comes back and switches with Demi Moore. And Demi Moore wakes up and sees what Sue has done. She doesn't just get the memories. Her consciousness isn't swapping into Sue's body. Both of them seem to share different consciousness. So they are different in consciousness, in a consciousness type of idea. So this isn't exactly Demi Moore getting to relive her early 20s era. This isn't that. This is literally just an offspring, literally It's somebody else living the life that she wanted to live, and she's trying to live vicariously through that. She becomes a recluse in her own house, trapped in her own apartment, trapped in her own life, because the life that Sue is living is the life that she wants to live, but she can't actually live that because she's always comatose on the bathroom floor whenever Sue's around. And of course, you always want to lecture Sue for being very irresponsible with the rules and all that stuff. They're told you have to switch after every 7 days. You can't just keep drawing out spinal fluid or whatever every to just get extra days. You can't do that. You're going to destroy the original body. And then if the original body dies, the double dies as well. It's a sad thing. And it really is telling that this is a terrible thing to want. It's a terrible thing to use because it's not necessarily ever really giving you what you want. It's giving you what you think you want. It's what you hope you wanted. And it gives you an appearance of what you want to be, but that's not you. It's not you. It's a different you. It's a different person. It's Buddy Love. Sue is Buddy Love. Sue is Eddie Murphy rocking a spandex, everything in spandex. And Sue's out there in spandex doing workout videos, and then she's gonna host New Year's Rockin' Eve, and it's just, I just keep thinking of The Nutty Professor. I just keep thinking of it. I do think The Nutty Professor is a better movie in regards to its moral, in regards to how it delivers that moral. At the very end of the film, it teaches the viewer that what you want may not necessarily be what society wants for you, how society wants you to look. You don't need to be Buddy Love's skinny twig man to be attractive. Intelligence is incredibly attractive. It really is. Experience is incredibly attractive. It really is. You don't need to be Miss Tight Pants Sue Lady to get what you want. If you're not getting what you want from Mr. Dennis Quaid Man, then it's not your fault. It's Dennis's fault. He wants something else. It's not you anymore, so go off and go get something else. Demi Moore in this film she doesn't look a day over 40, and she's apparently over 50. So it really is Dennis Quaid being very, very, very bigoted about appearances. And that's the point. It really was. Is that Demi Moore's character looks great for her age. She could probably do this for another 10 years. It's just producer man wants a prawn star. And Demi Moore doesn't really pull in the teenagers. She's more of a mature lady. She pulls in more mature audiences. So there is an audience still for her. She just, and she wants to recapture those earlier years. And the body horror, all the effects and the acting, everything is really good. Everything, and the shots, the music, the sound. I keep talking about the Nutty Professor and Dr. Jekyll, but I can't recommend all of the other stuff that makes a movie a movie. The camera, the sound, the acting, the way the shots look, the way the shots are shot, the way the everything, the pans. It's all very, very good. It is very good. If I'm going to say that this is a better shot movie than Dr. Jekyll, it's a better shot movie than both Nutty Professors, I would be telling the truth. It is a better shot movie. But they're also movies for two completely different audiences. I don't think the Nutty Professor fans, the general 90s one with Eddie Murphy, I don't think the Nutty Professor fans, all of that crowd, are going to be able to come into the substance and say, wow, what a great movie. I don't think so. I think a fraction of them might. And I think a bunch of the Fly fans, the Cronenberg remake Fly, are going to come into this and say, wow, what a great movie. But are the Cronenberg Fly fans going to come into the substance and say, hey, I want to watch The Nutty Professor now? Maybe some might. I watched both. I have both. I love both. The Substance is a really good blend of both of those types of films. And it does do a lot of satire. There is a lot of overacting and over-hyperbolizing of a lot of the things. Sue is overacted. She overacts in the pretty girl performance. The camera is very much a male-gazed camera angle, settling on butts and chests and all that stuff, because it's trying to show you what the society of this world wants, what Dennis Quaid wants out of the pretty girl on the screen. It's trying to get you to think about that while it's trying to shoot that stuff. There is a lot of nudity in here, but it is not sexual in any way. It's probably not going to... what's the word? We've seen Friday the 13th, right? We watch Friday the 13th. We see these college kids. They get naked and they start doing stuff, you know. It's not that type of thing. Nudity. It's not at all. Not at all. Not at all. The type of nudity in this isn't sexual. It doesn't feel sexual at all. It's just... they're just naked right now. And that's natural. Everybody gets naked at some point, probably when they get into the shower, when they're changing clothes. It's a natural part of life. It's a natural part of everything. It's not sexual all the time, and it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't. It's natural, and it should be allowed to happen in films without being sexualized. I think The Substance is a very good film. But I don't think it's unique in its storytelling, and I don't think it's trying to be either. I do think it definitely is pulling from that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, from that nutty Professor Buddy Love idea. It's trying to pull from that aspects of your body and your inner view of yourself versus the external view of what people want to see, and you're having a conflict of who you are as a person. Are you Sue? Or are you Demi Moore? It's a very interesting film with a very sad ending. It is a very sad ending because Demi Moore couldn't win. She couldn't win. I don't know if it's because she couldn't accept herself, or if she just wanted Sue so bad that even though Sue was a different person, she wanted to live vicariously through her, even though she hated every minute of seeing her on TV. Because it wasn't Sue that she wanted to see on TV. She wanted to see herself. And she wasn't seeing herself. It's sad. But that's how it is sometimes. We can't always have the happy ending in The Nutty Professor, where Sherman Klump gets to get the girl, even though he's a portly, rotund man. Sometimes we don't get our storybook happy ending. That's life. But we still have to live it.